Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole Quilts. I'm Tessa. It's good to be back. Summer has been so busy and I haven't got as much time in my quilt room as I'd like. So with the gardens ending and canning finally winding down a bit, I was able to come back. And I've been thinking about, what I could show you guys, what might be interesting for you guys. So I found this pattern here. I thought, wow, that looks kind of cool. And then I'm seeing this and I'm thinking, oh, okay, they probably use striped fabric. Nope, they did not. They made each stripe in there with a little piece. I'm just thinking about how long it would take to cut all those little pieces out. And I'm like, no, I don't have enough time in my life for that. So I went ahead and I modified it. So this is what we're kind of going for, but we're going to take it in a little different twist. Now, for the beginners, I'm going to base it off of the 10-inch layer cake square. I had a partial layer cake left from another project, and it's all rainbow colors, but they weren't all the colors that I wanted to put in it, so I did go ahead and cut just a couple of them from other fabric I had, like this one. I wanted some orange. There was not orange in it. I just cut two 10-inch squares off my fabric so that I could include it. And then I had some striped fabric, and I will show you how that looks. But I kind of found that I didn't love it as much as when I used Kate's onion rings as the background. We've got some bright, some kind of modern crazy stuff happening here, and I really kind of liked it. And then I had some of these little 2.5-inch square pre-cuts left. Well, I shouldn't say left. I don't remember why I bought them, but they've been on my shelf for a while. So we're going to use those today. I need to get them used up. And then I've cut some 4-inch squares out of another batik I had that is multicolored to kind of draw everything together. So I will show you what the striped version looks like, and then I'll show you the version we're going to make. So let me show you this. Here is the test block I did where I used striped fabric, and it is very cute. I did go ahead, I kind of thought on my test block that these little corners that are going to form little diamonds were maybe a little small for how the rest of it looked. This is a good size block here. It's like 19 and some inches. So it's a good size block. But then I kind of thought, well, what would it look like with the onion rings? So here is that same block done with onion rings, and then I used 4-inch squares to make the points here, and this is the 2.5-inch black that I had before. So let me show you how we make up the blocks that make the bigger block. For each block we're going to make, you need two 10-inch squares of whatever color you choose. We'll call that your focal fabric. You need two background squares. So in this case, we're going to be using the Cape onion rings. You need 4 2.5-inch squares to form the center, and we need 4 4-inch squares to go on the corners. So the first thing we have to do is pair these up. We need to lay down our onion rings, and on top of that we need to lay our focal fabric and center it over it. Now I'm probably old school doing it this way, but I like to go ahead and draw my line from corner to corner, and then I put my 1/4 inch on either side. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this one on. I know there are other, people can put, this tape line on their sewing table and everything, but this just always works for me, and I don't have that many to do, so I'm just gonna go with it. Off my center line there, I am just gonna do a scant 1/4 inch, and by scant I mean I'm gonna line up my 1/4 inch on the back side of my line, not right on top of the line, so that when I draw it on here that it ends up, because otherwise if I push it right on the line, the ruler, then when I draw it, because my pencil's out a little bit, it will push out. But the biggest thing is whatever you decide to do, just be consistent so that all your blocks will match up after we get done sewing and cutting them. So let me just finish this one here. And we'll put some pins in just to make sure everything holds. And we're going to do this to both of these. And then we're going to sew on the lines on either side of the center. So we'll sew on these 2 lines on either side, and then we'll cut on the middle one. Okay, the lines are sewn on either side and of the main middle line that we put on. So I'm going to go ahead, just take my ruler, lay it back on that line, and cut it, giving me 2 triangles. And I'm going to do the same thing with the second one. So here's what these look like when we open them up. We got a half with our focal and half with our background. I'm going to press these, and then we will go ahead and add the next part. Here are my pressed blocks, and the next part we're going to add is the center. So I went ahead on the 2.5 inch squares and I drew a line from corner to corner. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add these on the focal fabric side. We're just going to fit it right up there in the corner like that. Put a pin in it. Some of you may not need to pin it. For me, well, it always seems to slip, so I like to do it. So right now, our block is going to look like this. We got our onion rings, we got our focal fabric, and now we're adding that little triangle which will form a square in the center of the block. I'm going to do that to each block that I've made so far. So there's 4 of them, and I'm just going to go ahead, and I've already drawn my lines, and I'm just going to pin it on, and then I'm going to sew those on, and I will show you how that looks, and then we will add the last piece before we go ahead and join these all together into one big block. So the little squares are sewn on right through there, and then I went ahead and I pressed it in half like this. Now that would be way too much bulk to leave, so I'm just going to bend it down, and either with my rotary cutter or a pair of scissors, I'm just going to snip this off about 1/4 of an inch from Alright, here are our blocks. They're all sewed. We've got the dark black, we've got the focal fabric, the onions, and then this is the piece we just added, and it was added the same way as the little black piece. Square, sew, and trim it off. So let's go ahead and start turning this into a big quilt block. So here's the block so far. We got the top 2 sewn together, the bottom 2 sewn together. I went ahead and I pressed one way on one and one way on the other so that they will nest together. And now we will go ahead and sew these 2 pieces together to get our one big block. So I was working away on getting these blocks made for the quilt, And I got to a certain point and I step back and I take a look at it and I'm like, I don't know if I really like that or not. So as I'm laying out the blocks, I started to play with them. And first I tried, like, do I want a 2-color block? You know, would this be something that I liked better? You know, and then I started playing with a 4-color block, and I really like the 4-color block a whole lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take out all of these ones that are already sewed, and I'm going to re-sew them back together in with 4 different colors in each block, because I just really think, at least in my mind, that's a better look. So give me just a few minutes and I will get this all rearranged. Well, maybe more than a few minutes, but I will get them all taken apart and sewed back together and show you what it looks like. So I have all the blocks sewn together, as you can see. You know, before we talked about doing 3x4 sets of these, but when I did that, it was really long. It was like 80 inches long, which was way more than I wanted it to be, and the fabric read more of a circus or maybe a juvenile theme, so I decided to change things up a bit on this, and I went ahead and I left a row off. These were the blocks that I had intended to add, and then I didn't, so I'll just use them for another project. But then alone, I was not quite happy with it. So what I did is I decided to get a little creative, and I just added this border of elephants at the top. Mainly because I can see this quilt being something that my grandchildren and I spend time with reading books. And they love it. I mean, I showed it to them when they were visiting. They all were wanting to know when it's ready, when's it going to be done so we can use it. Gonna put purple minky on the back of it. I am just waiting for some variegated thread to arrive so that I can do the long arming on it. I kind of feel like that's the way it needs to be. So you can see from the original pattern to what we have now is very, very different. But that's okay, because it's a pattern, it's just a guide. We can do what we want with it. But I do know that this look is not for everybody. So I did go ahead and make up some blocks that are maybe a little more traditional. So let me get this down and I'll get those out and you can take a look at those. Okay. Here are some more traditional looking fabrics, not quite as crazy. The center here you can see is a lot bigger, because what I did was I used some of the 10-inch squares that I have from a pre-cut and just cut them into the 5-inch blocks and then sewed them on, and then used the other ones here. I did use a directional like wood grain on the outside to get that look. On this one here, I used a 3.5-inch squares for this part, and this is just the same, and then I didn't put it in the corner, and I just wanted to show you what you can get. You can still get that pinwheel look. You know, if you switch these around, like, you have to imagine there were other blocks going on here. Then you're going to go ahead in the center of this block and you're going to get this great pinwheel effect because of the striping going on, which is a really cool look. And you know, once again, we're doing it without having to make the stripes like it showed in the pattern. We're kind of cheating to get around it, but you can see there's a lot of different ways to use this block and to use striping or striped fabric to get a whole different look. So if you enjoyed making the circus quilt, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.